You're listening to the Cyberwire Network, powered by N2K.
What do Mattel, Banana Republic, ButcherBox, and Glossier all have in common? They power their businesses with Shopify. Shopify is the most innovative and scaled commerce platform on the planet that also happens to have the best converting checkout on the planet. And that's no industry secret. That's Shopify. Learn more at shopify.com/enterprise.
Hey everybody, Dave here. Have you ever wondered where your personal information is lurking online? Like many of you, I was concerned about my data being sold by data brokers. So I decided to try Delete Me. I have to say, Delete Me is a game changer. Within days of signing up, they started removing my personal information from hundreds of data brokers. I finally have peace of mind knowing my data privacy is protected. Delete Me's team does all the work for you with detailed reports, so you know exactly what's been done. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners. Today, get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/N2K and use promo code N2K at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/N2K and enter code N2K at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/N2K, code N2K. International law enforcement seizes domains of Russian crypto laundering networks. The real-world risk of a recently revealed Linux vulnerability appears low. Criminal charges loom in the Iranian hack of the Trump campaign. Meta is fined over $100 million for storing users' passwords in plain text. Delaware's public libraries grapple with the aftermath of a ransomware attack. Tor merges with Tails. Progress Software urges customers to patch multiple vulnerabilities. A critical vulnerability in VLC Media Player has been discovered. Our guests are Mark Lance and Andrew Nelson from GuidePoint Security, discussing their work, Hazard Ransomware, a Successful Broken Encryptor Story. And having the wisdom to admit you just don't know. It's Friday, September 27th, 2024. I'm Dave Bittner, and this is your Cyberwire Intel Briefing. Happy Friday, and thank you for joining us here today. On Thursday, the U.S. government and Dutch authorities took coordinated action against several Russian cryptocurrency exchanges and individuals accused of laundering cybercrime proceeds. The U.S. Treasury sanctioned the exchange Cryptex and Russian national Sergei Sergeyevich Ivanov, who is also allegedly involved with PM2BTC, a virtual currency exchange labeled a primary money laundering concern by the Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. Authorities seized websites and infrastructure tied to Cryptex, PM2BTC, and UAPS, another payment processor linked to Ivanov. Cryptex allegedly handled over $51 million from ransomware operations, while PM2BTC's transactions were heavily tied to criminal activities, including over $600,000 linked to Darknet markets. Ivanov is accused of laundering hundreds of millions in virtual currency for ransomware operators and Darknet vendors over the past 20 years. The U.S. Department of State announced a reward of up to $10 million for information leading to the arrest of Ivanov and another Russian national, Timur Shakhmamatov, the alleged creator of Joker's Stash, a major online marketplace for stolen data that was shut down in 2021. These sanctions are part of ongoing efforts to disrupt Russian cybercriminals who often operate freely within Russia. However, it remains uncertain whether these measures will effectively cut off such criminals from the global financial system. On September 23rd, researcher Simone Margaritelli teased a serious vulnerability affecting all GNU Linux systems, a remote execution flaw with a hefty CVSS score of 9.9. The flaw, tied to the Common Unix Printing System, CUPS, gained attention for its potential impact. Shortly after, technical details were leaked online, forcing Margaritelli to disclose the vulnerability along with a proof-of-concept exploit. 4 related CUPS vulnerabilities were revealed, allowing attackers to execute arbitrary code by hijacking print jobs via malicious URLs. However, while the vulnerabilities seemed critical at first, further analysis revealed significant mitigating factors. The affected CUPS services aren't vulnerable by default, and an attacker needs specific access to exploit them. Though Shodan shows 75,000 exposed CUPS daemons online, real-world exploitability appears low, especially in server environments. Still, patches are pending, and users are advised to mitigate by disabling vulnerable services. So, it's concerning, but not quite the next Heartbleed or Eternal Blue. Federal law enforcement officials are set to announce criminal charges related to an alleged Iranian hack of emails from members of former President Trump's campaign, according to sources speaking to ABC News. The hackers reportedly accessed internal documents, including materials used to vet potential running mates for Trump. The stolen data was allegedly shared with individuals connected to the Biden campaign. The Trump campaign, as victims, has been informed of the upcoming charges following standard Department of Justice procedures. Meta has been fined $101 million by the Irish Data Protection Commission for storing hundreds of millions of user passwords in plain text, a violation of the EU's General Data Protection Regulation. Meta first discovered the issue in 2019 and claimed that only internal employees had access to the unencrypted passwords, with no evidence of misuse. However, after a 5-year investigation, the DPC found Meta failed to implement proper security measures and did not promptly notify authorities. Meta's failure to protect users' passwords was deemed a breach of GDPR, which mandates robust safeguards for sensitive data. The DPC's decision was supported by other EU regulators, though the full reasoning behind the fine has not yet been made public. Delaware's public libraries are grappling with the aftermath of a ransomware attack that began on September 20th, disrupting services statewide. The breach has caused internal outages and forced some libraries to temporarily close, while others, like Wilmington Public Library, keep their doors open but have closed their computer labs. The Delaware Department of State confirmed ransomware as the cause, but the investigation is ongoing. The Ransom Hub hacker group has claimed responsibility, allegedly exfiltrating 56 gigabytes of data. No ransom details have been confirmed. The attack is particularly hard on vulnerable individuals like those experiencing homelessness who rely on library internet access. Delaware joins Washington State and Colorado in facing similar cyber attacks this year, underscoring the growing threat to public institutions. The Tor project has merged with the security-focused Tails operating system, a move aimed at enhancing privacy and security protections for high-risk users such as journalists and activists. After nearly a decade of collaboration, the merger allows Tails to benefit from Tor's larger operational framework, addressing challenges like HR and fundraising. This partnership will enable Tails to focus on its core mission of improving its OS while expanding its use cases. The merger also increases visibility for Tails among Tor's user base. The Tor project is a nonprofit organization that develops and maintains Tor, the Onion router, a free and open-source software designed to help people achieve online privacy and anonymity. Progress Software has urged customers to patch multiple critical and high-severity vulnerabilities in its WhatsApp Gold network monitoring tool. Although the company released an update on September 20th to address these issues, it has not provided specific details about the flaws. 6 vulnerabilities reported by security researchers impact prior versions. Customers are advised to upgrade immediately to avoid exploitation. Attackers have already been exploiting 2 WhatsApp Gold SQL injection vulnerabilities since August, potentially leading to remote code execution, according to security researchers. A critical vulnerability in VLC Media Player has been discovered, allowing attackers to execute malicious code via a specially crafted MMS stream. The flaw, caused by an integer overflow leading to a heap-based overflow, could result in VLC crashing or potentially executing arbitrary code with the user's privileges. The VLC team has fixed the issue in the most recent version, and users are strongly urged to update immediately to safeguard against potential attacks. To stay protected, users should avoid opening MMS streams from untrusted sources and disable VLC browser plugins until the update is applied. Andreas Fobian of Mantodia Security reported the vulnerability. Coming up after the break, Mark Lance and Andrew Nelson from GuidePoint Security describe their work, Hazard Ransomware, a Successful Broken Encryptor Story. Stay with us. Calling all InfoSec professionals. Are you dreading the annual scramble to create engaging content for Cybersecurity Awareness Month this October? KnowBe4 has your back with their brand new 2024 Resource Kit, featuring their own award-winning streaming quality show, The Inside Man. This comprehensive kit is a goldmine of free resources designed to both captivate and educate your users. Your users will enjoy free access to the heart-pounding first season of The Inside Man, and for the first time, engage in the Inside Man New Recruits game, where your users become cyber analysts hunting down a malicious insider threat. But there's more. You get access to a resource user guide packed with ideas and messaging, a weekly planner to help you roll out your campaign effortlessly, plus enough supporting training modules and assets to fill a whole month. Cover critical topics including AI and deepfakes, mobile device security, and incident response, all with the free kit. With KnowBe4's kit, say goodbye to outdated, unengaging content. It's all there, ready to go. Learn more at knowbe4.com/cybersecurity-kit. When it comes to ensuring your company has top-notch security practices, things can get complicated fast. Vanta automates compliance for SOC 2, ISO 27001, HIPAA, and more, saving you time and money. With Vanta, you can streamline security reviews by automating questionnaires and demonstrating your security posture with a customer-facing Trust Center. Over 7,000 global companies like Atlassian, Flow Health, and Quora use Vanta to manage risk and prove security in real time. Our listeners can claim a special offer of $1,000 off Vanta at vanta.com/cyber. That's VANTA.com/cyber for $1,000 off Vanta. Mark Lance is Vice President of DFIR and Threat Intelligence at GuidePoint Security, and Andrew Nelson is Principal Security Consultant also at GuidePoint Security. I recently got together with them to discuss their work, Hazard Ransomware, a Successful Broken Encryptor Story.
It was a post-ransomware encryptor deployment. So the the client that we were working with had already had encryption deployed. I think in their particular instance, they had some vulnerabilities with a public-facing server. The threat actor got access. They went through their typical TTPs of enumerating internal systems, gathering credentials. Ultimately, when they had identified the backups, they went ahead and deployed the ransomware.
So, Mark, help me understand here. I mean, when someone comes to you in this situation, is there a standard playbook that typically goes into action?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, each incident is unique, and you respond, specific to each of them. But ultimately, a lot of clients will reach out to us when they're seeing suspicious activities in their environment, or maybe they've got certain ransom notes that are showing up on systems. And so ultimately what we do is, step one, let's get on a phone call and let's understand what you guys have going on, what steps you've taken, and what actions have been taken at this point in time. We're also going to ask, questions about visibility. What do we have access to? What data sources can we leverage? Essentially kind of, what levers we can pull and what switches we can flip that's going to give our team the visibility we need to perform an investigation. Because ultimately what we want to find out is, how did somebody get into the environment? Once they got into the environment, what are they doing, or what did they do? Did they attempt to, steal certain information or access certain information? And if they did steal information, what information did they steal? And then ultimately the goal is to, in a lot of these circumstances, specifically surrounding ransomware, if there's been some sort of encryption, one, we want to help the client, recover so that they can restore operations, but also do that in a manner that's going to be secure, while also ensuring that we can perform that forensic investigation to make sure that they're not going to be able to continue to access the environment. And part of that as well is going to include, potentially reaching out to the threat actor, to these cyber criminal groups, and saying, hey, even if there's no intent on paying a ransom, initiating those discussions potentially to prolong the period before they publish or post information about what they've taken from the environment if you don't pay. Or maybe, I don't know, there is an appetite to pay. But ultimately, these are a lot of variables that go into the overall response effort and things that need to be taken into consideration.
So, Andrew, can you describe to us what exactly played out here in terms of there ultimately being a broken encryptor?
Right. So there was a couple things in play. So first off, for reasons that we're not exactly sure why, the affiliate that was deploying the ransomware actually executed multiple instances of the encryptor on the same system. So that, in conjunction with there being a bug in the encryptor itself, led to particular instances of files that were encrypted multiple times. The bug itself was essentially during the time that the files were encrypted, there was a brief window where the second encryptor that was executed could also encrypt that file. So the encryptor didn't use anything like a mutex to halt a similar encryptor from running. It also, towards the end, before it renamed the file and changed the extension, there's a brief window of time where the file wasn't locked anymore. So that allowed the second encryptor to then encrypt it again. The last issue with this bug is that there's a footer that's appended at the bottom that contains very important configuration information about how the data is actually decrypted. And the last few bytes in this particular instance that were missing were associated with that initialization vector. That was ultimately the stream of data that we had to brute force in order to decrypt the file.
Wow. I mean, Mark, it sounds like a worst case scenario here. I mean, I'm amazed that you didn't end up with basically, digital mush.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are some of the concerns that, when we're working on a client's behalf to perform, the communications or what people would consider ransomware negotiations. We're trying to establish terms that, like, if we do reach a settlement, the terms of the settlement, where you're going to give us access to a decryptor so we can decrypt our encrypted systems. You're going to give us method of ingress, how you got into the environment, and you're also going to you're going to ensure that the information that you stole is not published or disclosed on their website. And so those are generally the terms. Now, that being said, realistically, you have to be aware that you're dealing with a cyber criminal, somebody who has extorted you for money recently, and now they're trying to act on good faith and say, oh, these are the things we're going to get you. And so in a lot of instances, we've seen where they will go through troubleshooting steps and a progression of events to try to make sure that you are actually getting access to what they've alluded to or promised as part of those terms, because they don't want to get a bad reputation. They don't want it to be known that, oh, if you pay this specific group, you're not going to get access to the decryption capabilities. And then all of a sudden, people are going to stop paying that group. And these groups are built to monetize their efforts. But in this specific instance, we were extremely lucky in the sense, we worked with the threat actor to say, hey, this encryption or this decryptor is not working. They provided another version back, which was the initial decryptor with a different name of the same file. And so, thankfully through, continued troubleshooting, because at that point, the threat actor did stop communicating and just, kind of closed up shop for this one and moved on to the next. Thankfully, we were able to work to get access back to the information that the client needed to restore operations.
In your experience with helping people restore their data after they've been through an encryption event like this, how common is it for you to be working with someone whose estimates of how long this would take were in the right ballpark? Were it all accurate? Like, is it generally? I would guess that a lot of people really underestimate the effort here it takes to get back up and running.
Absolutely. And in a lot of instances, organizations are expecting to have their backups, but if they didn't have good backup security posture, then they may have been deleted. So that throws a complete curveball in terms of the restoration process. And oftentimes what we see is that the organization either doesn't have the staff to be in kind of a 24/7 mode to really get back up to speed where they need to be. And usually in those circumstances, that it's very beneficial for them to have some kind of augmentation to their staff to assist with that restoration process.
Mark, what's your advice to folks? I mean, when you hear stories like this, to minimize the impact of something like this, do you have any words of wisdom you can share?
Yeah, I'd say, user awareness and focus on fundamentals. I think one of the things that we find to be extremely beneficial is a lot of this stuff starts with, people clicking on a phishing link or some sort of vulnerability. And I think, as organizations, we do a good job of making sure people know how to potentially identify, phishing, or ensuring that their systems are up to date and making sure that they're patched. And so I think educating people not just on how to identify it or, how to perform those updates, but on top of that, getting them to really understand the true impact that could potentially be associated with not performing those things. And so I think a lot of people are like, oh yeah, it's a phishing email. I accidentally clicked a link, maybe entered some credentials. Hopefully it won't be that bad. I'll go ahead and report it over to my, information security team. But what a lot of people don't realize is that these multi-million-dollar, completely catastrophic incidents are all initiated via that one thing, or, that one system that got stood up that IT wasn't aware of and wasn't patched. And so again, I think it comes down to just making sure we're focusing on, core and kind of fundamental, things that everybody should be doing, from user awareness, good hygiene, being attentive, sharing information. And a lot of those things can help us, pick up these things earlier in the life cycle of the threat versus once the encryption binaries have already been, deployed and they're starting that encryption process.
Our thanks to Mark Lance and Andrew Nelson from GuidePoint Security for joining us. We'll have a link to their research in the show notes. The IT world used to be simpler. You only had to secure and manage environments that you controlled. Then came new technologies and new ways to work. Now, employees, apps, and networks are everywhere. This means poor visibility, security gaps, and added risk. That's why Cloudflare created the first-ever connectivity cloud. Visit cloudflare.com to protect your business everywhere you do business.
What do Mattel, Banana Republic, ButcherBox, and Glossier all have in common? They power their businesses with Shopify. Shopify is the most innovative and scaled commerce platform on the planet that also happens to have the best converting checkout on the planet. And that's no industry secret. That's Shopify. Learn more at shopify.com/enterprise.
And finally, my dearly departed father-in-law was a gifted, respected research chemist at the FDA. He was a kind, intelligent man with a hearty laugh and a quick wit. He also suffered from something my wife and I came to call male answer syndrome. People suffering from this condition, and they are usually men, feel compelled to confidently answer any and every question put to them, whether they have any idea what they're talking about or not. Sufferers of male answer syndrome seem to be physically incapable of uttering those three simple words, "I don't know." Which brings me to a recent study that found that larger, more advanced AI chatbots are great at giving correct answers, but also more prone to confidently spewing nonsense. Researchers at the Valencian Research Institute for Artificial Intelligence in Spain discovered that as chatbots like GPT and Llama grow in size and capability, they're less likely to admit they don't know something and more likely to guess, and guess wrong. The study also showed people often fail to recognize these bad answers, with many users mistaking them for accurate responses. The takeaway? While AI models are getting smarter, they're also getting better at BSing their way through tough questions. Developers are now urged to encourage these models to avoid answering tricky questions outright to reduce errors and help users better judge their reliability. In short, sometimes it's better for a chatbot to just say, "I don't know." And that's the Cyberwire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. Be sure to check out this weekend's Research Saturday, my conversation with Yves Yunin, Senior Manager with Talos Vulnerability Discovery and Research at Cisco. We're discussing their work, how multiple vulnerabilities in Microsoft apps for macOS pave the way to stealing permissions. That's Research Saturday. Do check it out. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing world of cybersecurity. If you like our show, please share a rating and review in your favorite podcast app. Please also fill out a survey in the show notes or send an email to cyberwire@n2k.com. We're privileged that N2K Cyberwire is part of the daily routine of the most influential leaders and operators in the public and private sector, from the Fortune 500 to many of the world's preeminent intelligence and law enforcement agencies. N2K makes it easy for companies to optimize your biggest investment, your people. We make you smarter about your teams while making your team smarter. Learn how at n2k.com. This episode was produced by Liz Stokes. Our mixer is Trey Hester, with original music and sound design by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Jennifer Eiben. Our executive editor is Brandon Karpf. Simone Petrella is our president. Peter Kilpie is our publisher, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here next week.